Good evening. Welcome to the Passionate LFC Transfer Room with Dan Underwood, and Stitches. I am very happy that you joined us this evening. As always, I'm looking at the chat. I'm seeing the names. John, I'm seeing views. It's appreciated. Those of you who are new to the channel, those of you who watch regularly, those of you who are watching for the second or third time, do us a favour. Just get involved in the chat for me, because I want to hear what you've got to say. This is an interactive channel. I'm here to talk to you, not just here to listen to me. I want to hear what you've got to say. So if you can, put your comments in, because I really appreciate you reading them. And last weekend, we had a really fun stream, and a lot of that came from you guys in that chat. So to get us all going, stick a like on for me, put a comment in, put a subscribe in, most importantly, if you can. If you're not already subscribed, I'd really appreciate it. So let's get going, and I'll get straight into it. We are going to be talking about, probably, in my opinion, the most important situations going on at Liverpool. And there's three men involved in that: Trent Alexander-Arnold, Virgil van Dijk, and Mohamed Salah. If you'd asked me at the end of last season, I would have said there's two people who absolutely have to stay. And that would have been Virgil van Dijk and Trent Alexander-Arnold. And now my decision has slightly changed. I now believe there's three people, and all three of them have to stay. I was open to the idea of Mo Salah leaving. I was open to the idea of the big bid came in and we could reinvest the money and blah-de-blah-de-blah. And if he doesn't sign the deal, then we kind of have to move it on and all this situation. And to be totally honest with you, my opinion's changed on that, because I feel now what needs to happen is so much has changed off our pitch. Everybody who we don't see week in, week out, but are vital to running this club, are gone. And that doesn't just mean the people in the dugout. It means the people who don't get the same level of praise, but are equally as important. And we just need to keep the status quo on the pitch. Dan Underwood, can you tell me, firstly, how you are? And secondly, am I right and wrong in thinking this?
I think you're right that that's probably the most important thing that's going on right now, directly between Richard Hughes and those three players when they come back. Well, Salah's already back, but when Verge and Trent come back from the Euros. Yeah, I mean, there has been a lot of change behind the scenes, but the good news is a lot of that was done before June. So everyone has had about a month, more or less, to kind of bed in, get some things going, and essentially just trying to get the summer started. Obviously, this is a very weird summer because you have Copa America and the Euros, so it's a slow window, not just for Liverpool, but for a lot of other teams, Manchester United aside, and Chelsea, who are just Chelsea and
just the small clubs, yeah, just big
ones.
The
small clubs in the world. But I mean, it's obvious. I don't think all three are the most important. I think Trent's the most important out of all of them, just because of where he's at. I think you can make an argument about Verge and Salah, that's one that, especially Verge, it could probably be late. It could be an issue where his contract runs down, they re-sign him next summer. Salah may be a similar situation, but I think Trent's the more important of those three that you have to keep. I think that, I mean, you can figure out a way around Van Dijk and Salah if you have to. We have the players to kind of figure that out, but Trent is probably the most unique footballer out of all of them, and the most dynamic and the most important for, I would say, attacking in any sort of way within this team. But that's I agree with you on the importance. I think the behind the scenes stuff has been, I don't think we can overstate how much of a big shift that is, both positive and negative. But also, I think it'll be fine. We'll be fine. We were fine last year when we only signed two players, but we'll be fine.
We signed 4 last year, didn't we?
What?
We signed 4 players.
But by this time, by this time last year, we had signed 2 players. We had signed both Szoboszlai and McAllister, and you had the Lavia situation going on. People were saying, buy Kefren Turam, where's Manu Kone? Where's this, where's that? All that fun stuff as well. So, my point being is the fact that even though we've obviously had no big incomings, we've had no big outgoings yet. So it's just going to be one of those summers where a lot's going to be probably happening in August. And if nothing happens, then it's not great. Maybe inquiries should be made in Parliament, but I don't think that'll be the case. And we just have to sit back and see.
Just before I come to Stitch, just want to go back to you there, Dan. You see, now I've got a difference of opinion with you. I don't feel that we can replace Virgil van Dijk. I don't feel that he's actually replaceable. I feel that anybody we bring in will be a cheap imitation. There's no one available who's going to even be close to the level that he's able to provide. Mo Salah, I feel that you can't actually replace him as an individual. I don't think the goals and the assists is anybody out there who's going to be hitting the numbers that he hits consistently. I just don't think they exist. I don't think there's a player right now who's going to be, he's at that level quite yet, who's reached that level. There's players who have the potential to get there, but right now there's nobody who I can think of who is attainable as well. Also really important word to use. But with Trent, I, of course, love Trent. And just off camera, he exists up here. But what I will say is that for me, the borderline numbers, the numbers that sit on a spreadsheet and that sit on there, I feel that he could be replaced more easily than the other two. Where do you feel on that one? Do you feel that, am I wrong in saying that, or do you think that it's more than just what he can do on a pitch?
No, I think for like, there is no one like Van Dijk. The closest one to Virgil van Dijk is probably, who's probably the closest to Virgil van Dijk right now is center back.
The pause says it all.
It's like question time. I'm putting the hard questions.
No, I'm running through all the center backs. I'm running through all the good center backs.
The pause says it all.
There's no one that comes out of my, no one comes to my mind. But however, that's my point though, is that if you lose Van Dijk, you can change the way you play, is my point. Like Virgil van Dijk is the reason we play 2v3 most attacks, and he's on FSG's payroll. I know. Actually, I said I'm on their sandwich payroll, so they pay me in Subway sandwiches. Which is not the most. A man's got to eat. That's all I got to say. That's $20 a day I don't have to spend. Thank you, Mihai, for outing me.
As you can see, Dan can't answer that question, but he does enjoy a footlong. Carry on.
Pause.
Why didn't lad? So with Salah, I think you don't replace Salah the player, you replace how you want to attack, because Salah is used as the most advanced attacker. He is both the best, most creative, and the most Nunez is the most goal creating, but Salah is also a right winger that plays as a striker, but also as a 10. So you don't replace the player, you replace what you want that position to do. The reason I think Trent is the least, let's worry about transfer activity. The reason I think that Trent is the most difficult to replace is because he is the most unique. Like the which player in the world plays back to front as quick as Trent Alexander-Arnold? Joshua Kimmich maybe, but he's 30. Kevin De Bruyne, whose hamstrings are gone. Who else? Like maybe Odegaard, Martin Odegaard, who can't last more than 65 minutes, and he's already at Arsenal. So maybe Tchouaméni, or it would be the closest analog. But again, like he's at Madrid and probably unattainable. I say probably. He's most likely unattainable because Madrid aren't signing anybody else in the position. Thank you, Paul. I'm actually a history teacher and I have multiple degrees in it. Thank you for reminding me to flex my time in university. So that's why I think Trent is the most important to keep, because you can figure out things with what to do with a Van Dijk hole or a Salah hole and just rejig how you want to attack and how you want to play the game. But with Trent is the one that is much more difficult to replace, in my opinion, for what it's worth, which is worth apparently a foot long from Subway.
Well, that's it. As many footlongs as you can fit in. Stitches, same question to yourself. I've stated that I believe that the most important situation for Liverpool right now, as we stand today, July the 21st, wherever you are around the world, that Liverpool need to keep the status quo, that Liverpool need to keep hold of the players who've been there and done it, the most experienced players and some of the best players this club have ever had, at least in the Premier League era. Am I right and wrong in thinking this, or do you actually feel like one of them losing 1, 2 / any of them is acceptable in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, so I'm a bit like you in this regard, in the regard that I flip-flopped on this question quite a bit. If you'd have asked me towards the end of last season, I felt that we have to start planning for the replacement for some of these players. We need to start planning for the replacement for Salah, because although if you look at his numbers, it was still a pretty decent season by Salah standards. it looked like he dropped off a little bit. And one of the most shocking things, not shocking, but one of the most stark things for me was Salah usually comes back from injury and hits the ground like, well, he hardly ever gets injured first and foremost. But any niggles that he has, he comes back and hits ground running immediately. And it seemed like it took him a while to get going again. And now this might be because we were changing our pattern of play, style of play. Instead of having someone overlapping him, we're having him drop deeper and kind of play a playmaker role more than he used to. And that was, impacting things, and the team was going through that transition. I don't know, but it just didn't seem the same. So I was of the mind, if his contract is coming to an end, cash in, especially seeing as, the oil money was being floated around, and, it would help us with a rebuild. Because as we know, we generate money to spend money. So I'm thinking, could this be a Coutinho situation? Could we sell him for a huge deal of money and then use that to maybe upgrade and fix the team? So although my heart was saying, I don't want to see the Egyptian king leave, my head was telling me this may be the right time. So that was that. With Van Dijk, I was concerned because it took him so long to get back from the Pickford assault that I didn't know if he'd ever get back to his levels. I still don't think he's prime Van Dijk, but he looks a lot closer to that.
I think he's the best we've ever seen.
You think he's better than prime Van Dijk? Okay.
Honestly, well, I genuinely last season, the Virgil van Dijk that I saw last season, not the one prior, I thought he was unbelievable. I genuinely thought he was absolutely unbelievable for the fact that he's come back from where he was and the levels he put on there. Maybe it wasn't quite as flashy, maybe it wasn't quite as exciting at times, but it was a masterclass, to be honest. But that's just where I am. Maybe I'm a romantic.
Yeah. So I mean, I just remember Van Dijk didn't get dribble pass for a whole season. And I wasn't seeing that last year, although I was seeing something close to that. So Van Dijk, for me, I was kind of like, okay, he's coming back now, but we do need to bring someone, maybe a young understudy, in to learn from him. He's going to get some minutes and going to allow us to rest him on occasion because he plays almost every game when he's fit. And then, Kwanzaa stepped forward. And I was like, wow, he moves like Van Dijk. He almost looks like Van Dijk when he's playing. This is perfect. That's what I'm thinking. But then obviously we've lost Matip. Gomez, I'm still unsure if he's going to be a fullback or a centre back. But at one time, he was the natural heir to or partner to Van Dijk, when Matip was out. And that looked pretty good. So I feel like, in my mind, he was replaceable, but not necessarily. It wasn't necessary that we replace him. I was thinking maybe stop preparing for him leaving by bringing someone in to learn from him, getting ready for him to leave, even if it's on a free. Salah, we couldn't let go on a free because there's just too much value in that. Van Dijk, potentially, we can let him end his career at Liverpool and get the value out of that in the same way that we did with maybe Milner. And Lallana. And then, Trent, this is the conundrum. I love Trent. And I think that he's unique in his skill set of delivering the ball with pinpoint accuracy into our attacking lines. I just don't know if he wants to be a fullback or a midfielder. And although he came through the academy system as a midfielder, he's played all of his senior football as a fullback. And I know everyone is revisionist and everyone wants to talk about he's the worst defender in the world, but we won a world championship and Champions League and a Premier League with him there on the right. So he clearly can play that position. My counter argument has always been, get any other fullback who you rate, right? Put him in the Liverpool system, where when we transition, you have to be beyond the halfway line by the time the second pass is made, and then ask them to defend in the way that Trent has to, which involves a lot of recovery runs, which involves decision making, which is of the top level. So again, I don't think Trent is someone that we can let go of. However, I want to caveat that by saying the amount of pressure he gets from the media, from pundits, about, he could do nine things great in a game and do one bad thing, and the whole narrative will be around that one mistake. Whereas other players in the same position don't get the same amount of scrutiny. We can look at, the way, oh God, his name's just completely gone out of my head. The English football back in the Euros played.
Kyle Walker.
Kyle Walker, thank you. Alzheimer's setting in. I'm gonna have to retire me like Sleepy Joe. But you can look at the way he played, and if Trent had played even slightly like that, he would have got ruined. He would have completely got ruined. But it's just glossed over. So for me, with that in mind, he's a young guy. The amount of pressure is, even if we give him a midfield role now, he won't be viewed like any other midfielder. Other midfielders can make mistakes, and it can be just, overlooked. Trent goes in there, he could have an absolute blinder and make one mistake, and they're going to tell you it's a failure. So with all of that backdrop and the amount of hate he gets, although I want him to stay at Liverpool, and I think, potential future captain, he has a lot of charity work that he does in the local Kirby area that I know about. He does a lot of good. It's a Scouse kid going through a Scouse club system, future captain, all of that good stuff. If his head gets turned to go to Madrid and go and be with his mate Bellingham and just get rid of all of that pressure and just play and enjoy your football without all of that, it wouldn't shock me. But I wouldn't want it to happen. And if that's the case, and that does happen, we've got to make as much money out as we can out of that deal if it happens. Although, with all of that being said, recently saw not a documentary, an interview with him. He didn't give me any indications that it was looking like he wanted to leave. I didn't get any of that vibe. So to go back to it, those three players, I thought, we may have to prime ourselves on losing them. But ultimately, I think now we absolutely have to keep them. And the reason we have to keep them is exactly what you said, Dan. There's been so much turmoil, right? And people are not even looking at it in the regards that there's more turmoil than we're actually thinking about. There's the turmoil of the fact that Klopp has been fully in charge for the last 2 seasons. And our usual transfer methods and analytics and all of that seem to have gone out of the window a little bit in terms of decision making on signings, on contract extensions, all of that, managing players in, managing players out. It all seemed a bit chaotic. Now you've got the brain trust back, right? They need time to establish themselves again. They need time it's not a time for us to just rush out into the transfer market with a new manager in place, with new backroom staff in place. Yes, they've watched tons of videos and all of that, but they actually have to work with the players. You have to feel, what they've got and then decide where they're going to go with it. And I'd rather they took their time making those decisions, because we're not a club that has money that we can invest and then for it to go to waste. We have to make right decisions. So I would rather they took their time and not worked with what we have, because it's not a bad team. Right, and then figure out where it is they need to enhance or where it is they need a change, and then go into the market. And I know there's going to be few people who are going to disagree with me, but that's just my view.
Definitely, excellent. The 3 things to quickly just as a point to those, and where for people who are watching at home, I do want your opinions. I want to see what you are saying to this situation, but we have to live in a reality. It's easy to say, sell Salah. Question is to who? Because nobody is putting an offer on the table. Nobody's buying. Nobody's going there and saying to us, here's 60 million, 70 million, 80 million, whatever number you want to put on there. Right now, no one's offered us a pound. There's not even a pound on the table for him. So with Salah, the situation needs to be a case of, we can't replace his goals unless we completely change our system, which is something that we're currently doing now, only in a little bit. So there's an awful lot of change when it comes to going onto the pitch. And the last thing we need to be really doing is looking to offload a player unless the price is right. And in Mo Salah, the price would have to be right. And so far, there is no money available for him. So as it stands for me right now, as this window goes on and as every day passes, it's looking more and more important that Mo Salah is to stay. Whether he signs a deal or not, is not really relevant. It's a case of we probably just need to keep that player in our team because we know what he's capable of. Virgil van Dijk, I am supremely confident, to be honest, that he would sign another deal. He's probably the one I would feel the most comfortable as it stands right now. Pardon me. Again, who is the buyer? The question needs to be is who is going to be the buyer right now, and nobody's coming around to it. Saudi Arabia again has been mentioned, but it's easy pickings at the moment for many journalists to come out there and say, "Oh well, Saudi Arabia are preparing a bid." Well, apparently, according to a number of journalists last season, Mo Salah was apparently leaving Liverpool after the Newcastle game, and then going to be having a medical done, and that didn't happen. So right now, I don't believe a word that comes out when it comes to situations like that. Now, the Trent Alexander-Arnold situation, the Real Madrid is becoming more and more of a situation where in the past I'd have been like, yep, it's fine, it's not going to happen. He wants to stay. And as the time ticks on and as his contract gets one day closer to coming to an end, it does feel a little bit more like anything can happen. Any possibilities are going to occur, and one of those could be, why would your head not be turned about going and living in the great weather, playing in the Bernabeu, playing with Mbappe, playing in a league where basically you're more than likely to win the title every season, probably going to win the Champions League time after time after time, because that's just the way that it is. Now, my only change that situation that needs to be put out there is if Trent Alexander-Arnold was to go to Real Madrid, there's absolutely no way he's playing in that midfield. There's just no space for him. There's nobody there who is going to make way for Trent Alexander-Arnold. He'd have to replace Carvajal. So his position on the pitch, for me, I don't really feel is relevant, to be honest. It weighs less on me as it's a case of, oh, well, he doesn't want to play there anymore. Well, ultimately, we need to play to his skill set. And right now, his best skill set has always been as to be a right back. His best skill set that we've used him as, and the one he's been most effective, is playing from right back. Of course, he has the tools to be able to play within a midfield situation. However, playing in the midfield within the Premier League is very, very different. And there's an awful lot more put on him when it comes to off the field, off the ball sort of use of where his position is going to need to be. I'm confident that on a slot, Liverpool will be able to find a way to get him to be in this team in a way that he's comfortable, in a way that he's happy, that we can use his statistic, his ability and the statistics that he's able to put out there and say that this is the best way to use him. He's an incredible talent, probably one of the best Liverpool players to have ever come out of our academy. The numbers, I don't think, should be a problem. I feel that Liverpool would be able to justify pretty much any sort of figure that needs to be given to him, as he has done what he's already done. The evidence is there in front of him, and it wouldn't upset too many people. So I'm not concerned about that. My only issue that I have with the Trent Alexander-Arnold situation is that we've allowed this to drag on, of course, into this season, which doesn't help Arne Slot. Arne Slot is new here. The sporting director is new here. Even the technical director and the our head of football, Michael Edwards and Julian Ward, haven't been in the building for the last 12 to 24 months. So there's a little bit of getting used to. And as Dan mentioned before earlier on, the Euros and the Copa America isn't helping. It's keeping players away from the club and meaning that we're not able to have these discussions. As it stands right now, only Mo Salah is back in the AXA, and he's the only one who we're able to have those communications and those face-to-face chats with. And I think all of us would like to see the other two back in the building as soon as possible to be able to have that conversation. Let's have a look here in the chat before we move on to the next one. Oh, hello, Young Gun TY. Hello, Dan, you and Stitches. Hello to you. Truly silly season, Dan. LSE equals hits and views. The bad journalists and sites need that. That's what you do when you monetize clicks and interactions. They only go off the most crazy and the mental ones. Salah has never indicated he wants to leave or any interest in moving to Saudi Arabia. No, he hasn't. We don't hear a lot out of Mo Salah, to be totally honest with you, unless he's having a row with Jurgen Klopp at the West Ham game. Reds, Richard Hughes' signing will be done in August. We need to relax. I'd like that. I think that would make sense. I'd very much like to hear these signings to be done within the August months. I'm relaxed about it, but of course, as the time ticks on and as the days move forward and other clubs start making moves, sometimes your hand gets forced in chess. and it could be a case of I don't want us to have our hand forced when it comes to the transfers. I would say sell Curtis Jones instead of Jota. Jota's uninjured, Jota uninjured is a game changer. However, Jota is never not injured, except for around about 8 to 12 games every season. That's how I see it. Before we move on to the next one, right then, the next conversation. Goncalo Inacio, the Portuguese centre-back. You might have heard of him on this channel before if you watch us regularly. We don't discuss him very often. However, we're going to discuss him again. And we're going to discuss the information that's coming out of the news. CM, stand by. CM Journal. I'm not going to pronounce the Portuguese of it, as I will butcher it. The reports coming out that Sporting Lisbon will reportedly be willing to open talks over his deal for £37.9 million, which is 45 million euros for those on the continent. Dan, I'll go to yourself. I'm sure you've had your opinion on this 100 times. What do you make of the price coming down? What does that tell you?
I mean, that doesn't make sense to me because his release clause was changed last year to, I think, 55 million euros, or was it 65 million euros? So if this rumor is to believe, which I don't think it's believable, it would say that Sporting need money, need cash on hand. I don't think they've sold anybody. They won League One, the Premier Liga last year in Portugal. So they did end up winning. They were in a title race when Ruben Amorim decided to try and become West Ham's next manager, which was a very funny time. I don't know if he's sad about not being West Ham's manager, but he did win the Premier Liga for Sporting. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at their squad right now. I mean, he's registered as their fourth captain behind anything else. So for me, it just screams that the reason this is coming out is because Victor Gyökeres has been rooted as a move away. They really don't have anybody else except Diomande, Ousmane Diomande, who is like the sellable asset. So those three are kind of like their big ones right now: Inacio, Diomande, and Gyökeres. Though you could say Pedro Gonçalves is also a good player that has not gotten a move away yet. I don't know. Like, my opinion on Inacio was, if they wanted him, they could have got him last year because he was like 35 million, was the same price. I actually think it's interesting that they're roughly the same price it's quoting us. So it's just recopying what was said last year and just saying reports coming out of Portugal. I think Inacio is a good player in a back three, and he would make sense if Antonio Conte was the manager. He doesn't make sense for how like Arne Slot's playing has set the play, as you can see from the Preston highlights. Because you have to be a good one-on-one defender and also good at the ball, and Inacio is just not good in space. That's why he plays. That's why Ruben Amorim has him playing a back three. I don't think Inacio is the answer. You know, if you're talking about being opportunistic in the market, I don't rate him that highly. I can be wrong. I'm very open to being wrong about Gonçalo Inacio, but Inacio, but no one else has bought him. Like, Juventus could have bought him, PSG could have bought him, and if no one else is really going for him, like, that kind of tells you all you need to know. Either one, he doesn't want to leave Sporting, which is perfectly legitimate because he is, again, the fourth captain, so he's obviously a leader. He was part of their youth system. Amorim has been his manager for the past 3 years, so he probably likes where he's at. Yeah, that's my opinion on Inacio, and that's kind of always been my opinion. He doesn't play left back. He plays left center back in a 3, which is a much different position than playing a left-sided center back in a 4, or even a left-sided center back in a 2, which is what Virgil van Dijk has done for the past, 7 years now. And I know Tanya put there Hincapié or Inacio. Hincapié would be the only one that would make sense because he is a left center back and a left back. But if you're buying Hincapié, you're going to play him a left back. I'm not throwing Pedro Hincapié in a back 2 with one of Gomez, Kwanzaa, Konate, or Sepp Vandenberg. And it's not because his partners are bad. It's because Hincapié makes sense if you're playing as a left back, similar to how City had, what was his name? Joseph Guardiola, who they paid, 90 million pounds or euros. They paid a lot of money for a center back to play left back, which is absolutely bizarre spending of money. But they won the league, so who am I to say? I don't understand Pep Guardiola's bold-headed genius, so it is what it is. I don't think Inacio. I don't think the Inacio Liverpool thing's going to happen. The best option was when Amaram was in the list of managers they were thinking of bringing in. That didn't happen. I don't think he's going to come. Everyone who was primarily with the Portuguese league, your Julian Wards, are no longer at Liverpool. They're in the FSG superstructure. Yeah, I know, Jimmy. It's Inacio. I keep saying Ignacio like he's Spanish, but it's Inacio because he's Portuguese, because Portuguese and Spanish just happen to be separate languages, even though they're both Latin. Why do we have to have separate languages, guys? Why can't we all just speak like one language? Like, let's call it Latin, and let's just call it Latin, and we just all speak Latin, like traditional Latin, not Latinized languages. I'm just kidding. Historical rant on the Roman Empire done.
I struggle with the language I currently speak, so I don't need to learn any of a new one. So I'm not advocating what Dan has to say on this channel. Stitches, same question to yourself. I've not had your opinion on Inacio. Left-footed, young, he's Portuguese. He works obviously well in a league where things are very different. In a system that's very different. The price has come down, and it says a lot to me that nobody else is making the move. So if nobody else is making the move, why should we be the ones making the moves? Because it's not like he's some hidden gem. Everyone knows about this guy. So can you tell me, have you got a strong opinion when it comes to Inacio?
I don't have a strong opinion for us signing him.
Well, that's the end of that. Right.
I have, no, I just feel I'm with everything you guys have said. I mean, Dan's breakdown was quite thorough. What is the reason for the price coming down? And nobody else is interested. That tells me there isn't much interest in this guy. When you then add to it the qualitative stuff the quantitative stuff in regards to the numbers. He plays in a back three, doesn't fit our system. And we know that the bean counters, the data guys, are going to be crunching numbers and looking at how this person fits into our system. So it's like fitting around ball in a square hole. It doesn't work. So my mind can't compute why we would be in for him. And the price that we're talking about is not far off the price of Calafiori, who is available. Now, again, there's doubts on him because does he want to be a left back or does he want to be a centre back? And again, does he play in a back three or does he play in a back two? And, all the same questions, but it seems to me that he's a better caliber of player. Now, there's a third thing involved in this, which is that, and people are not going to like this, but we have a youth system. We have players that are developing who want to play, all right, or who we want to give the opportunity to play. And we don't want to see them develop in the first team. But Kwanzaa had minutes last year, and those minutes are going to stand him in good stead this year. Sepp van der Berg, he's gone. He's gone on loan for how many seasons? By all accounts, he's been amazing.
4 years.
For 4 years.
Signed him after
his experience. He's been in work experience for 4 years, right? And then
signed him after he won the Champions League.
And he's come in pre-season, and apparently he's been on smoke. So you got to look at it and think, there's bigger decisions being taken and bigger context being put in that than what we see. Like, we were shouting for a centre back. I remember, 2 windows ago when we had the crisis, or however long we were like, we need a centre back. But they're probably sitting there thinking, yes, we do. But if we buy a centre back, what happens to Kwanzaa? And what happens to the young players that we want to give opportunities to if we just go out to the transfer market every time? So whilst we may not see them as solutions right now, the new head coach Slot he's a coach. He's a people coach. He likes to work with people, so he's going to want to give them opportunities. So I don't know, to spend that kind of money on a maybe. I'm not convinced that that's the way we're going to go, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, and if you think about who Liverpool have been linked to, Calafiori links have never been really that solid. I mean, I imagine Liverpool were looking at him even before this, but they were never that solid. And actually, it was more Juventus were the one trying to get him before Arsenal. swooped in, the Gunas. Like Euro was obviously the one they really, really liked, but Euro is, if you think of his profile, is 18. He's a developing player. He's still a talent, but he's obviously not the finished product. And he was in the last year of his contract. And they were probably willing to spend 30, I would guess 35 to 40 million pounds for him. I think similar to what they spent on Konate 3 seasons ago, or what was reported they were going to spend on Levi Colwell, which I think was around maybe 50 to 60. But the big thing was the fact that they weren't going to guarantee him game time because you can't. He's 18. There are other players already in the squad. And I think that if you look at who Liverpool are wanting to sign, it's someone either between, say, Kwanzaa and Gomez and Konate age range. So Konate and Gomez are 25 to 27. So someone between 24, 21 and 25 that can rotate, or they want someone younger than Vandenberg and Kwanzaa, who Vandenberg's now 22, Kwanzaa's 21. I think he turns 22 this next year. So they're looking to either bridge the gap between the Vandenberg Kwanzaa echelon and the Gomez Konate echelon, or they're looking to bring someone who is talented, who is obviously like has already developed on someone else's books that they can bring in and essentially say you'll trade with the first team. If Sepp Vandenberg stays, you're probably not going to get a game, but if he leaves, you're definitely going to get like League Cup, FA Cup, potentially you get 5 to 10 games, but you never know because Kwanzaa was like 7th choice, and then he automatically became second choice or third choice by the end of the season because that's how these things work. Which brings on to the one player we're linked to, Dan, which is who?
Well, what I'll do is let me just make a response to that situation. I think there's something which, for those of you who are watching now, and then obviously the gentlemen on here, we have, of course, a situation now where we have a new manager and we have a new assistant coaches, we have new everybody. And just like a chef coming into a restaurant, they have a number of ingredients they're all having to look at. And right now, that's what they're doing. They need to see what we already have. And before they start asking for new ones to be put in, new situations to be put into bringing these new players. And I think it's absolutely fair to give every player an opportunity to impress, because ultimately there is clean slates. There's some players who will absolutely benefit from a clean slate. Fabio Carvalho is probably one of them. This is a new manager, and this is new people for him to re-impress and have that opportunity again for whatever's clearly may well have happened in the background. Where there's some players having a clean slate doesn't really work, because unfortunately some of that background work that we're not aware of that's maybe got them to where they want to be is all gone now. They've now got to rebuild that trust. They've now got to rebuild that relationship with a new coaching system, and they'll have to do that on the pitch. So I am not overly, I mean, a lot of people say we need to bring in a centre back. It's hard for me to sit there and say it, because as Dan has already said, we mentioned before about Lenny Yoro. Lenny Yoro would have been an ideal purchase if we were in a very different situation than the one we are now. The one we are in right now is that Lenny Yoro would still be 4th choice centre-back at Liverpool Football Club had we signed him. He would not have come into this club and played anywhere near the minutes that he would get at Manchester United. Manchester United had every ability to say to him, you've got every chance of starting probably half the league at the very minimum. Harry Maguire is out of favour. Leandro Martinez has got a number of injury issues. Rafa Varane's no longer at the club. Johnny Evans is older than time itself. So where else is it that, but we can't offer that, can we? We've got Virgil van Dijk, best centre-back in the Premier League, still is, let's be honest, best Premier League centre-back going on there. So you're not starting ahead of him. Ibrahima Konate is a 40-odd million pound player, 23, 24 years of age, coming into his prime. If it wasn't for injuries, he is our second choice centre-back, full through and through. There's no changing about that one. Oh, and by the way, Jarell Kwanzaa, who's just come out of absolutely nowhere and he's putting up numbers which are unbelievable. It's like, where were we hiding this guy? Where was he? And I think it surprised everyone, even within the club. So he's not going in front of them either. Had the Jarell Kwanzaa situation not happened last season, I would have been screaming out for us to be saying that we should be where that Lenny Yoro situation is. That's where we need to be, because we know Ibrahima Konate is made of biscuits at times. So we need to know someone's going to be there to cover him. Joel Matip has left the building. He's gone. No more Giraffe Maisie runs from centre-back coming next season, which is disappointing. But Joel Quanzer's here now. Joel Quanzer is technically that new signing, and it's never as sexy as it's never as, oh my God, wow, look at this new signing when they come in through the academy. Connor Bradley came in. Nobody was like that. Just heard little bits and pieces. He's been brilliant at Bolton, but that doesn't make everyone feel amazing. But when he comes on and plays for us, and all of a sudden Connor Bradley's basically a first-team player, isn't he? We're talking about going because Connor Bradley's here. Trent Alexander-Arnold has an opinion to play somewhere else within the pitch. So centre-back isn't the biggest issue for me, but we'll now discuss. Heck on, Oliver, Dan, are you comparing the Liverpool squad to the Bear? I've only watched a few episodes of the Bear so far, so I'm
Such
not
a great
quite,
show. Such
but,
a great show.
Yeah, I was enjoying it, but there's so much television for me to watch. But I need to start again there.
I know. I was really trying to set you up for that transition there, Dan.
You've set me, and now I've got into a whole new world, and then there's a number of different things happening. But we'll get into that next one. If Kanata gets injured, it's Quanzer and Van Dijk. We need a centre back if we want to progress. Yeah, I can agree with that. I can see it. But the problem is convincing that centre back that you're going to get the minutes. And you're going to be able to get in there. That's the difficulty. Now, moving on to the third point of our piece, and I will try not to butcher his name. I'm not Danish. Dean Huijsen, out of Juventus, is apparently up for sale. He was on loan last season at Roma. 14 games, 2 goals and an assist. Not bad for a centre-back, 21 years of age. He is Danish, born in Holland, grew up in Spain, and learned his football in Italy, so he gets around. Boys, I didn't know a great deal about this young man, to be honest with you, prior to the last few hours, to be honest. But I'm interested. I think the numbers that they're talking about, £25 million, is probably in the realms of sort of doable for a player who, at the age of 19, isn't going to be someone who is going to be demanding first team minutes and could well be that sort of the backup who's comfortable being a backup and knows that their time will come, whether it's probably not this season, maybe going into the latter stages of next season. Stitches, I'll go to yourself. Dean Huijsen, what do you make of this sort of signing after Calafiori is on the way to Arsenal? Would you be happy with a signing like that?
I actually would be. I think this is in the right ballpark, as you said, in terms of the financials. It works. The age profile of the player, it works. For the role that the player will be coming into.
Tuto Sports. Sorry to interrupt. Tuto Sports. Sorry.
Yeah. The role that the player is coming into and would be accepting is absolutely right for us. It's not the Euro deal. Because you imagine he's 1 year older than Euro, and we're going to be paying, a lot less in terms of wages, in terms of fee. It seems more a Liverpool type deal. And nostalgically, if I look back and I think who was our last Danish centre back, who we loved, Daniel Agger. Do we want to get on the blower to him and ask him, is this the second coming? Is this you minus the injuries? So I'm all over this. This is the type of deal that makes sense. The only caveat I'll say is that our guys move in silence. So I tend to see, when I see rumors popping up in newspapers and on socials, I think to myself, well, that deal's not going to happen then, because the deals that these guys do, you don't even see them coming. Next thing you know, they're getting signed and being presented to the media because everything's been done. So if there's grumblings about this, if there's noise being made about this in socials and it's going on over weeks and we're not seeing anything, I tend to think it's not likely. But in terms of profile, I think spot on. I don't know much about this guy, but from what we do know, it seems like an LFC signing.
Dan, you are a man of many opinions. Tell me, what do you know about Dean Huijsen and how he's going to be the next Daniel Agger?
Well, there's a couple of problems with what you said, Dan. Don't mean to be pedantic, but he's not 21, he's 19, and he's not.
I said 19. Sorry, I did change me.
He's not Danish. He's Dutch. So I apologize.
I thought he was Danish.
No, he's born in Amsterdam and North Holland in the Netherlands. Unless the Netherlands is part of Denmark, which I don't think it's been part of Denmark.
No, I just don't know why. It's pointed out here that it made a point of him born in Amsterdam, but I don't know why. But it made a thing of that. Sorry, carry on.
No, it's fine. So yeah, so he went through the Dutch youth system. He was in the Juventus's academy team in Serie C, which is the semi-pro league in Italy. He had one season at Juventus. He went along to Roma. I'm actually looking if he played with Mourinho or he played under who replaced Daniel De Rossi. I think Daniel De Rossi is the one who brought him in to Roma. And started giving him game time after Mourinho was let go. So from what I can tell, so this is someone who is writing about the original Tudo article. It's from Sporting News, written by Adnan Sharma. I'm so sorry if I don't think they're watching this, but so essentially what happened is that PSG offered 20 million euros for him, but Juventus said it was too low. He had already agreed a contract with PSG, and that they're holding out. They rate him closer to 30 million euros, which is around 25 million pounds or $32.5 million just for the conversions here. So right now it seems that the interested parties are Newcastle and Liverpool. And that's kind of interesting to me because Newcastle do need a center back. So I think they're kind of in a similar market to us. I actually think he fits the profile. I think 30 million might be a lot for someone like that. That is a risk for someone who is a 19-year-old center back, but he is 6'5". He did score 2 goals for Roma, so he was scoring goals too. He's not Joe Gomez waiting for his first goal, sadly. I think if your budget for, let's just hypothetically say that Liverpool have 80 million pounds to spend roughly, and that can be extended to 150 million if they really needed someone or the opportunity came up, like similar with the Caicedo situation last year. If you're budgeting for a center back is between say 25 to 35 million pounds for a center back, which I'm just assuming that I have no basis on that. This is pure speculation based on just hypothetically what I think they have in the bank. Yeah, he fits the mold. Like, he doesn't have as many games as Lenny Euro. He's not as popular as Lenny Euro, and obviously Serie A is not the same as Ligue 1 in the sense that they're both like Ligue 1 is very a tactically interesting league. Italy right now, Serie A is kind of still behind the times a bit, but he did play for Daniel De Rossi's Roma, and they were playing aggressive attacking football. This was when Roma made a charge for the Champions League. I don't think they got it. I don't think they ended up getting it. Yeah, they ended up finishing 6th, but they still had a good end of the season. And yeah, Jamie, you just mentioned the fact that Newcastle want Kwanzaa. So Newcastle are obviously shopping in this similar market for young center backs to come in and get potentially 15 to 20 games, I think, a season. I mean, I think he makes sense. I mean, he's Dutch, that should just say everything as well. He is 19, so if Liverpool did buy him and register him, he would count as homegrown in 2 years, because you need to be bought and registered before under the age of 21 for 2 years, be considered homegrown. So if they bought him this summer and they kept him on the register, even if they loaned him out, he would essentially be considered homegrown. So I think it makes a lot of sense. It makes more sense than the Calafiori deal. It's more risk. He's not has as many certainties as Lenny Euro does. But I think that would actually plays in his favor, because if you give him 2 years with Slot or 2 years just with our coaching and analytical staff, and yeah, Newcastle did poach a lot of analytical staff too, but we actually still have a very, very good scouting data department in general. Barry Hunter, the head scout, Whiteman, I think, is the guy who took over from the former head of analytics. I'd have to go look up the Liverpool structure. Yeah, Spearman as well. So I think it's a deal that actually makes a lot of sense. I mean, I know it's not exciting because he only has essentially professional games. So he's played where is it at? Oh, no, that's why I don't have it. I think he's only played like 40 games total. So there is that 45. So he's played 45 total appearances, 41 league appearances, 14 in Serie A. So again, his experience is not that much less than Euro's. I think Euro had like 30 or 40 games in League 1, maybe even less than that for Leo. But yeah, I actually think it makes a lot of sense, especially for the price of 30 million euros. Like, why not? I mean, at the worst case, you buy him and you just sell him on for about the same, a couple years, or you just let his contract wind down and let him go. I mean, like, it's not that big of a loss in the grand scheme of things once you amortize out the fee and the contract too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just wanted to add, just obviously doing a little bit more research whilst you guys were speaking and looking at his profile. He's a ball playing centre back. Apparently, he's got excellent position and the ability to read the game. Great concentration. He's elegant and composed on the ball. He's press resistant, which is interesting for a centre back in a team that likes to build up from the back. And, keeps the ball, has their centre backs playing quite high up. He's got a wide range of passing, and he's both footed. I mean, what's there not to like in terms of that description? And he's extremely dominant in the air, as you mentioned. He's 6'5". At 19, if he's got those attributes, that's definitely something we can develop and work with. And as you said, Dan, if we have him, in the squad, developing, cooking away in the background, and he isn't quite what we thought he is. He's still young enough for us to get some value out of him as well. So it just sounds good. Sounds like a no-brainer, really.
Yeah, he said very much sounds like a Brighton signing. But I think 30 million euros is a lot for them. But I think Liverpool could. I wouldn't say easily. I don't know what their department's saying, but they'd probably look at him saying we don't have enough games and data to project his what he would be and if he's overvalued or at value in the market. But this would be one I would keep an eye on just to see where he goes. I would definitely say, and yeah, Dean Huijsen. I think you said it right at the beginning, Dan. You did a very good job. But he's definitely right now he's playing for the Spain U21s, and Spain just won the Euros. So if Spain, who got him from the Netherlands youth team, if Spain is having him play a center back,
you're telling me that he's Dutch, but then he also played for Spain. I'm not having that. I've not been had off here. He may be Dutch, but he's playing for Spain. Come off it. Come on, behave.
Listen, Messi's Italian. He plays for Argentina. What do you want from me? Like the world's a global game.
I got it wrong. I got it wrong, and this fella's got more identities than Mr. Ben. Give it a rest.
But I think that's telling on his potential. If the Spanish team felt it necessary to get him from the Netherlands into their youth system, and he's already played a game for them, the U21 is not the main team, then they obviously rate him. And Spain doesn't have a lot of good defenders right now, so yeah, this would be one to keep an eye on, definitely.
Certainly is, and that's going to talk about the international man of mystery that is Dean Huijsen, depending on whether or not he does come to us or not, and we'll work out which nationality he is and who he plays for and where he's from. We'll bring that to you when we get it. Now, I just wanted to have a little bit of a chat because I've not been able to have a chat with anyone else about it. The behind closed doors game against Preston. Stitches, go to yourself. Have you seen the footage? The 4 minutes and 11 seconds.
I did watch it.
Watched them multiple times. Have you been able to take in and feel that we have turned? What did you make of what you saw? Forget the wonder goal. Yes, I've said it 100 times.
So the wonder goal kind of came against the run of play. Let's just put that out there, right? I think it was one of the only shots they had.
The only shot on target.
The only shot that they had on target. And I felt a bit sorry for Jaros. So I've heard good things about him, but modern day goalkeepers are expected to be outside the semicircle, high up the pitch, playing as sweeper keepers these days. So the propensity for that to happen in modern day football is actually more than at any other time. So I'll caveat that by that. I also caveat everything I say by understanding that this is pre-season. You can't really take much out of this. It's a warm-up. There's loads of subs being made, teams being changed all over. They've probably trained twice before they've trained. It's probably their third session of the day. And Preston are a lot further ahead of us in terms of their preparations for the season. But nevertheless, it's Preston and we're Liverpool. And as expected, we dominated the ball. Now, there were some interesting things that I picked out. I picked out, sorry, frog in my throat, that, we played Elliott in a deeper midfield role on the left of midfield, rather than be accustomed to seeing him on the right in the Salah role or playing on the right midfield. He was playing off the left, and he was combining really, really well with Shimikas. Shimikas doing the overlaps and all of that. Doak was good to see him back, and he was passing the ball. And I know his threat is running at players, but one of my frustrations was you could play a 1-2 sometimes, and then run at them when you're in the penalty area, you're closer to the penalty box. So he was passing a lot more and passing and moving and looking to receive it in Liverpool way. And he looked really sharp and really interesting. And the balls he was playing into the box weren't just, those hopeful crosses that he was doing. It was like he was actually trying to pick out a man. And when everyone else was losing their mind about Dirk, as was I kept trying to bring them back down to earth and say, hang on, there's no end product here yet. He's a kid. That's the bit of his game that he needs to develop. And it looks like he's been doing some work on that. So that's really exciting. And then also seeing Curtis Jones in a deeper role as well was interesting. I think he was playing as one of the pivots or playing the pivot role, which was interesting. And our build-up play was very incisive, direct, and we were creating opportunities. So there was a lot for me to take out of them and think, oh, this looks good. It's not far off where we were, but it looks good in terms of our intensity and our playing on the front foot, which I think is key to the identity of our squad and the identity of our club. And so that looked really good. So I was enthused despite the result by what I saw. But again, I don't want to get carried away. Let's see, over the next lot of preseason games and then into the season on that first match against Ipswich, that's really going to be the litmus test rather than what happens in preseason. But it looks good. Is
Definitely.
what I would end on. Yeah.
Dan, what did you make of what you saw? I was really impressed with some of the off the ball movements. I thought it was nice to see some of players like Fabio Carvalho being heavily involved in some of the positive work that we saw. I'd love to have seen the entire game to see how it really went, but the extended highlights, which I've watched multiple times, I was pretty impressed, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we look at preseason games and we have our next one against Betis on Friday, so it's coming thick and fast. The the preseason starts in end of July. I think it's interesting because whenever you do a preseason game, you usually try to choose, especially behind closed doors, you choose a team that's going to do something that you're trying to work against. And I think Preston, based on sitting deep and they do a high press when Liverpool are in possession, and that's how Robbie Brady scored his goal. Only Robbie Brady could do that. Ireland's version of what was his name? I'm forgetting. The Scottish guy from Stoke. I'm forgetting his name now. Charlie Adam. There we go. Like the person that can just pull a worldie out of his ass. Like it clipped the bar too. That's the thing. Like it. I don't even think it counts as a shot on target because it clipped the bar and went in over Yara. So you can see in that game that what Slot is trying to get them to do is work on against a low block side and a team that's not going to fight for possession. They're going to look to play counterattacking, very direct 1-2 Poga position maximum opportunity. Pomo, this is something we've seen a lot with like Luton and other teams coming up, is that fluidity. So the idea that, people are dropping deep, receiving the ball, running at them, playing the ball and running. I think there's definitely a more emphasis on more directness, I think, than what we had in a club. I think club at times like allowed the players to kind of do what they want, and the important thing was counter pressing what we do in and out of possession. But within that, they coached them how to make decisions. I think Slot is doing that more, but allowing them more freedom, at least for this game, just to get them used to the idea of like what happens when you're dropping to the center back to receive the ball to create space for someone else to run into, which is good. That goal, I think we're going to see that opposition teams, because it's very similar to the United goal. I'm sorry, I'm making me remember the Bruno Fernandes goal, where teams are going to target probably the fullbacks, especially when they're playing back to goal. I think it was Connor Bradley, and that's it. Or was it Doak?
He just got caught flat-footed. He was just switched off.
But that's where teams are a lot of oppositional sides. Your Brentfords, your Fulhams, your I'm trying to think of who else was similar. Maybe like not Chelsea, but maybe a Newcastle, someone who has pace with someone who
West
can
Ham.
pull West Ham. That they're going to much target Liverpool when they're in possession in the build-up phase, back to goal. That's their pressing trigger, and that's essentially what the opposite of that's what Slot's trying to get them to use. It's like, this is how teams are going to play against you. This is what we do in that situation. So yeah, no, I was really impressed. Sucks no one scored, but again, this is a glorified scrimmage match. Like, it's even less than that, the training session essentially.
Yeah.
Don't take anything away from preseason results. It's just all about getting them in shape and just looking at the fun little things that they're trying to do on the pitch. But yeah, no, I was actually really impressed by a lot of players. Fabio Carvalho, who I think if he stays with Slot will be really, really good, or good option to play. Sepp had a good game. Everybody else, I mean, Yaros still had a good game playing as like third choice goalkeeper. I mean, yeah, he gets chipped, but like, again, chipped, hits the bar, go in by an Irish international you're not getting chipped by just some guy at your Sunday pub team. I'm just one trying to say.
In all honesty, I mean, with the greatest respect to Yaros, I really shouldn't care less. He's our fair choice goalkeeper. It's really bad if that man comes anywhere close to our first team next season. Things have gone very, very badly. That would be Allison's not available or CK's not available, and that would make me feel really sad. So it happens. It can happen to any goalkeeper. What I liked was there was a move in there, which I think everyone who's watched it will know the move I'm talking about, which ended really closely with a world-class save in the Preston goalkeeper for Harvey Elliott. I loved what I was seeing there. That was something which we haven't seen for a little while. We've seen a lot of times where we kind of maybe run out of ideas in the past when it comes to these low box situations, like Dan was talking about, where the movement off the ball, the fact that we were happy to move from left to right to put a cross into here and then put it back across the 6-yard box, that leads me to believe, have we put a out-and-out number 9 in there, that we should hope that could be what we're going to see going forward into next season. The Real Betis game, for those of you over in the UK, it's at midnight on Saturday, so don't get confused about Friday. It's don't miss that one. midnight Saturday morning, which I'm obviously thrilled at staying up till silly o'clock in the morning to watch a Liverpool game. I can't wait. How dare they? So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that Betis game. It's going to be a really interesting one. Full 90 minutes up against a good team in Real Betis. Hopefully they have Adrian in net, and of course he'll show the reason why we should have kept him. That contract was the right reasons. We should have offered him to it. I just want to thank everybody who has been involved today in the chat. I want to thank Dan. I want to thank Stitches. I'm hoping come next Sunday I'll have something to talk about to you with a little bit more concrete towards it. As you can see, another week has passed and even less transfers have happened. So I can't bring you too much. But in that time, join us tomorrow, 7:30 at more Liverpool chat. Maybe they're able to bring something to you. Until next time, we'll see you later. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Peace.